Welcome everybody to the Social Work Occupational Council's annual summer seminar on social work jobs. My name is Brian Kaufman. I'm the chair of the council. Our co-chair, Clara Moradian, was not able to make it tonight, and we wish her well. The council is an affiliation of the NASW California, and our goal is to advocate for social work as an occupation by providing education and advocacy on all aspects of working as a social worker. Each year we provide a presentation designed for recent or soon-to-be social work school graduates. The single most difficult job to get is the very first one right out of grad school. So I feel for you all. It is the hardest one to get. So hopefully this and our other presentations will be helpful to you in that endeavor. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel, NASW-CA SWOC, and I posted that to the chat, along with all of our other presentations. Any specific questions you have that we did not address specifically here, you can always email us at NASW-CA.SWOC@gmail.com, which I've also posted to the chat, and we will do our best to answer them. So without further ado, we're going to get to our presentation here. We decided to do something a little different this time around. So instead of us talking about our own jobs, I work for the state. I work at Metropolitan State Hospital in Norwalk, California, and the state was really kind enough to post on their YouTube channel some how to apply there. So I had posted that, and I wanted to also interview someone who has recently switched careers to a different agency, and hopefully this presentation can give you some insights into the process of getting hired on at an agency such as this. So I welcome my good friend and colleague Richard Taylor, and would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. It's good to see you. It's been about almost 7 months. My name is Richard Taylor, licensed clinical social worker. I have been working in the field of mental health and social service for about, maybe 18 years now. This is my second career. Initially, I started off in about 2006 after graduating from Cal State Long Beach. 2005, 2006, I served as a deputy probation officer and wanted to do something else. You know, I transitioned into social work in 2007, went back to school to Cal State Long Beach to pursue my MSW. And it's like the rest is history. You know, I just fell in love with social work and the vast array of areas where you could grow, and the clinical opportunities for knowledge, and I just fell in love with it, you know. So I actually have been not only with the state and the federal government, but I've also worked with the county for 8 years. So I've had a lot of jobs. So state, county, and federal government, and again, I think I have some good knowledge and a good grasp upon how to go about seeking employment with state, federal, or county employment.
Absolutely. So let's get started. My questions were more specific toward the VA. So since you have that immediate experience with that, so I want to at least get started with that. Then we can circle back to your previous jobs. So tell us about the process of acquiring a job at the VA.
So the process of acquiring a job with the VA is very daunting, or it can be very daunting and intimidating. Nevertheless, if you familiarize yourself with the website USA Jobs, you can get a better understanding of the different duties and programs and GS classifications that they have within the VA. So the first thing I would do if I were graduating this year with my MSW is to get familiar with the different programs and positions within the VA. So I work at the Long Beach VA, and we have 194 social workers. I didn't know that until I got there to the Long Beach VA. So as you can probably imagine, we have numerous programs, and I don't even know them all. I'm going to try to name as many as I can think to remember. HUD-VASH, and that acronym is Housing Urban Development, Veterans Assistant Supported Housing, acute medicine, homeless outreach. We have caregiver support. We have spinal cord injury. We have veterans mental evaluation team. We have crisis intervention. That's where I work, which consists of 5 different programs: suicide prevention, emergency department, veteran resource center, workplace violence prevention program, intimate partner violence, the emergency department. We have traumatic brain injury, palliative care. We have inpatient, L1M1. We have our CBOCs. That acronym stands for Community-Based Outpatient Clinics, Santa Ana, Placencia, and Gardena. And I can't name all, but we have a bunch of different areas. Now, when you talk about just graduating and kind of getting your feet wet after graduation, more than likely, they will have openings in HUD-VASH. HUD-VASH is a very challenging and difficult area of social work with the VA, where the veterans can be challenging when it comes to their housing, and a lot of social workers tend to do a couple years there and get out and try to find another program because the resources are at a minimum, and it's just a challenging place to be when it comes to HUD-VASH. So a lot of the GS9s who are starting off, those GS9s will be deemed social workers who have gotten their MSWs and do not have any years of postgraduate experience. So they'll start off as GS9s. So they'll be under that general salary classification. And then after they complete 1 year postgraduate experience, they can apply for a GS11 position. And the interesting part about GS11s is that GS11s can be licensed, or they could have that 1 year of experience that I alluded to, postgraduate experience. So again, these are positions that are usually on the kind of the get your foot in the door areas of social work with the VA. And then we have GS12s. Now, GS12s are going to be a mix of social workers who have 2 years plus of postgraduate MSW experience. So the GS12s are usually described as our senior social workers. They also may have a title of program coordinator. They can work specialized areas of social work. Some may be deemed program coordinators. Some GS12s are even supervisory social workers, and they are deemed mid-level supervisory social workers. So they work up under our GS13s and 14s. And the 13s and 14s are pretty much our chiefs, our managers, our administrators, chiefs of social work. So definitely get familiar with the different programs and positions and GS classifications. I think it's a great idea for MSWs to start a profile in US jobs. It's never too early. If you want a job at the VA, get in there now, get familiar with the website, learn how to navigate the website, and learn how to use the key terms that are necessary to find the job that you may be looking for. So social work, social worker, supervisory social worker. But again, you guys are just coming out of graduate school. So if you're sticking with just social worker, that will be absolutely fine. And you're going to get a bunch of jobs. I mean, well over probably 100 jobs that'll pop up, not only in California, but all over the nation. Okay, so one of the great things about the VA is that there are VAs in pretty much all 50 states. And sometimes there are multiple, VAs in the states. Like in California alone, we have, different regions. So we are in Vision 22. So this region comprises of Southern California, Northern California, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and San Diego, and a couple other VAs where within this vision we have like 6 to 8 VAs. So we kind of break it down between geographical regions. So number one, yeah, again, get familiar with USA Jobs. Two, start a profile with USA Jobs. Upload your resume, your curriculum vitae, and a copy of your ASW registration. Make sure that it's current and active. Make sure that everything is spelled correctly. And something else I like to add, that make sure you proofread your resume. I like to make it a habit to really do a deep dive into positions that I'm applying for or that I've considered, where I have an understanding of where I stand with my knowledge, skills, and ability, and how they match up with the job that I'm looking for. So again, if you are newly out of graduate school and you're looking at these GS9 positions with HUD-VASH, you may say to yourself, well, I don't know what HUD-VASH is. That's absolutely fine. But this is a great time for you to educate yourself on what HUD-VASH is, because you can actually type in or Google HUD-VASH and a bunch of articles will pop up. A bunch of information is right there at your disposal to look through, to educate yourself and get familiar with what HUD-VASH is. There's been legislation that has been put in place to assist veterans as far as resources pertaining to HUD-VASH. And it's really a valuable asset for our veterans who are unhoused or who deal with like not knowing where they're going to live, or in infrequent housing. Let me see what else I got here. Also, I think it's a good idea to explore the job positions and duties of social workers, and see what piques your interest. Everybody doesn't have to go to HUD-VASH. There was a social worker that I actually started with who was newly licensed, and they started off in HUD-VASH for 2 weeks, but then they were able to transition into acute medicine. Someone left, someone transitioned to another position, and it just so happened that social worker had some experience with acute medicine, and they transitioned in there. So it's a matter of getting into the VA, get familiar with different programs, and just seeing what you like and seeing what fits. My particular situation was unique because I was hired via the hiring fair. The VA had a hiring fair where they actually were looking to hire a number of social workers right on the spot. So I brought my resume, curriculum vitae, COVID shot documentation, and all kind of stuff. That day, I was there from 6:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. I did everything. I got my ID, I got my PIV card, I got all the documentation. I was interviewed. I knew my salary, and everything was done like that day. I was just blown away by how fast everything went. But that was a fast track situation. So if you see the hiring fair on USA Jobs, please jump on that opportunity, because again, that's a space where you can literally get hired on the spot and you can come on board relatively quickly. Because I believe I went to the hiring fair in the early summer or late summer, and then I was hired in the late fall. So you're still gonna have to wait some time, but again, that's how you want to get in, because it's really difficult when you're applying via the other way, where there's not a hiring fair and you just feel as if you don't know what's going on. There's not much correspondence. You might have interviewed well, you might have done a great job, but you haven't heard back, and you may not hear back, because again, a lot of people want to get into the VA, a lot of people apply, and you might not have been the best fit for them at that time. It's not a knock against your knowledge, skills, or abilities, but you may not have been a fit for them at that particular time. So again, stay encouraged, and get familiar with USA Jobs, definitely.
And that's great advice, not just for the VA, but for the county, the state. A lot of these job postings, they always have their own website. You have their own application. You may not hear from them for weeks, if not months. Very typical. That is very typical. I'm glad you brought up the resume. From my experience, let me see if you would agree with me. I love the fact that you mentioned make sure you spell everything correctly. This is so true. And my experience, you want to put as much detail about, about yourself, about whatever it is you've done as possible, so that the algorithms, whatever, when it gets generated, will have the most pop-ups.
Yes, and when you talk about entry-level social work jobs, a lot of the positions are similar as far as their duties and requirements. So you could literally look at a position with the VA, an entry-level social work position, and then look at a clinical social work position at within the state hospitals, and they may look very similar. So again, when you talk about putting your best foot forward, let me just give you an example. Your resume is going to speak volumes before you say a word. When someone looks at your resume and your spelling is on point, you're very detailed, you're very transparent and forthcoming about your productivity, that's going to speak volumes before you say one word. Before they lay eyes on you, they look at your resume and they get a picture of who you are, what kind of social worker you are. If you have spelling errors, if your grammar is off, if you are saying things within your resume that doesn't really line up or speak to someone who is an entry-level social worker, those are going to be red flags. Those are definitely going to be red flags. So yeah, your resume needs to be on point, and don't be afraid to reach out and have somebody proofread it.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Beautiful. Let me see here. Oh, the interview process. Now, if I remember correctly, is it not a panel interview?
So the interesting part about my experience with the VA, I had 4 interviews.
Oh,
The first 3 interviews I had were all virtual. There was a panel of 3 or 4 social workers. And I think the first 2 positions were supervisory social work positions, but they were GS-12 positions. And again, this is when you kind of do your homework. I knew that the GS-12s as supervisors were paid the same as the GS-12s who would come in as a senior social worker. But these were GS-12 positions with HUD-VASH. And I didn't really feel like HUD-VASH would be a good fit for me at this point in my social work career. So I interviewed, I feel like I did a great job, and I actually turned down a couple of positions because I just didn't feel like it was a good fit for me. And those were at West LA VA. All 3 of those were at West LA VA, I believe. The hiring fair was at the Long Beach VA, but the other 3 interviews I had were at the West LA VA. And I didn't think that was a good fit, that particular position. They were panel interviews. All were either social workers or supervisory social workers, and they asked questions that spoke to my knowledge, skills, or abilities as a social worker. They gave me a scenario. They gave the general scenario of if you have a disagreement with someone on your multidisciplinary team, how do you respond? What is your posture? How do you move forward in those particular situations? And I've been on so many interviews. It's not like I can predict the questions, but I have an idea that they're going to ask that particular question. And I have experience not getting along or not being on the same page with my multidisciplinary team. So it's just par for the course. I also feel as if don't come into an interview feeling like you have to know everything or feeling like you are a know-it-all. Just because I do have extensive experience, I do not feel as if I know everything about social work. I feel like I specialize in certain areas of social work, and there are other areas of social work where those are areas for growth and where I may be a little bit more vulnerable, and that's okay. I've been hired in positions where companies have told me because of your attitude, because you came in and you didn't feel as if you knew every single thing, we like that. You were humble and you wanted to learn. You were eager. You were dedicated to learning more about the position and growing as a clinician. And I think that that's attractive. That's an attractive characteristic trait that employers are looking for. Because if you come in feeling as if you know everything, well, why do I need to hire if you know everything? Why do I need to hire you? You can go get hired somewhere else. So
Okay. Were the questions standard questions, or did they use open-ended? Did they throw in some follow-up questions?
standard questions and follow-up questions.
Mm.
Just to be transparent, you can actually Google VA social work questions, social work interview questions. Some questions will come up, some questions won't. Of course, I didn't find this out till after I got hired, but I had someone tell me that you can go online and look up questions. Now, these questions aren't guaranteed to be there, but it gives you an idea of what they're looking for. Usually, you'll get a question around, tell me about your experience as a social worker. Tell me about your experience in mental health, or maybe your knowledge of a particular program that you're applying to. What do you know about HUD-VASH? What do you know about acute medicine? What do you know about spinal cord injury or traumatic brain injuries? And so you can speak to that, hopefully with some intelligence and with some in-depth knowledge and understanding that is attractive to them, to employers. And then you will get the standard. Think of a scenario where you did not get along with your fellow team member or fellow coworker. How did you respond? How did that impact you? And then you also get the standard. Have you what have you done to make a difference in your particular in your past job? Is there a particular program you created? Is there a particular something you can point to where you maybe won an award, or you were considered outstanding on an evaluation for a task you completed? Maybe you are exceptional in documentation and case management. I was able to speak to my experience at Metropolitan State Hospital, creating a project backpack, where I created a program for where patients were given a backpack full of toiletries and supplies, secondary to being having their conservatorship dropped, and just a great program that has helped patients kind of navigate their way as they integrate back within the community. So whatever you've done to make a difference, I think really stands out. You know, we have a bunch of social workers who are great, who do a great job, and then you have social workers that are exceptional. So again, if your efforts really speak to making a difference, and you're committed and you're dedicated to patient care, and I mean, it's going to speak volumes. It's going to be in you. They're going to see it.
Very good, very good. You sort of alluded to this next question, but I'll still ask it anyway because I know it's an important one. Licensure. A lot of places require licensure prior to even applying. Is that the case with the VA?
No, it is not the case with the VA. What the VA will do is they will set you up with a clinical supervisor, or if you have a clinical supervisor in mind who's already there at the VA after you're employed, you could work up under them as long as they have the 15-hour course, supervision course done. We have some social workers who have also sought licensure in states like Tennessee and Illinois, and they can get licensed through those channels. I don't know a tremendous amount about those avenues, but what they'll do usually is grandfather you, because California is known to have some of the more tougher restrictions when it comes to licensure and pursuing licensure. So when you apply in Tennessee and I think Arizona and Illinois, they will grandfather you in, and you will be deemed a LCSW. But there are certain programs and locations within the VA that won't accept the Tennessee, Illinois, or Arizona license if you're trying to go into the supervisory social work positions. They are looking specifically for your California LCSW. But hopefully there is legislature that is being put in place where there is reciprocity across the board and our license can be transferred from state to state. So I believe we have maybe 8 or 9 states that have signed off on that. And hopefully over the next year or so, we won't have to worry about stuff like that. We can literally move and our license will be respected and acknowledged in other states.
That would be nice. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
look forward to that day
Oh,
coming.
yeah.
What are the similarities and differences compared to acquiring state or county or municipal employment?
Okay, let's start with the similarities. The similarities are the interview will be a panel interview, whether virtual or in person. Another similarity is you have USA Jobs with the federal government, with the VA, and then you have CalCareers with the state. So both of these websites, you can review and look over and familiarize yourself with different positions, different programs, to get an understanding of the requisite duties and responsibilities of social workers within the state and federal levels. So the state is very limited in specialized social work positions and where you could work. If it's not DHS, Department of Health Services, or excuse me, if it's not the Department of State Hospitals, the prisons, which is CDCR, or Department of Rehabilitation, and there might be a couple other places, like that's about it. Like you're very limited. And the positions are clinical social worker, supervisory social worker, chief of social work. Like that is the gist of it. Now, when you're working with the VA and you're exploring social work jobs within the VA, there is just limitless amount of social work jobs and opportunities in other states as well. So you can have a GS-12 supervisory social work position in California, but you apply for the assistant chief of social work in Boston, Massachusetts, but the pay range is still the same, but it's a GS-13 and you can apply for that job. So just in my limited experience, you have social worker positions at the GS-9 level, GS-7, GS-11, GS-12, GS-13, GS-14, and then the highest level GS-15s. And the GS-15s, again, are going to be heads of the entire department. My chief, Kimberly Shear, is a GS-14. She's the chief of social work. Our GS-13 is assistant chief. So the 13s and 14s are going to be your chiefs and management level positions. The state level, when it comes to social work, it's just supervisory social worker, and it might be supervisory social worker 1 and 2, depending upon the location, and then chief of social work. I believe they might have some chief of social work 2 positions that have might recently come out, but to my knowledge, you just basically have clinical social worker. Sometimes they have clinical social worker 1, 2, or 3, and then supervisory social worker 1, 2, or 1, 2, and 3, and then chief of social work. And that's pretty much it. But there's a lot more variety, a lot more, I guess, flexibility as far as different areas of social work within the VA and federal government jobs.
All right, very good. And lastly, is there any advice you would like to give that you haven't already given for our recent grads?
Yeah, before I get to that, I wanted to mention that some of the state jobs may require a substantial commute, because if you're not working within Greater Los Angeles, within Metropolitan State Hospital, some of the state jobs require a very strenuous and long commute or relocation, because again, the positions are very limited. The VA has community-based outpatient clinics. They have different VAs. We have the West LA VA. We have the Long Beach VA. We have San Diego VA. We have an Oceanside VA clinic. And we have different CBOCs and different hubs where the VA has offices where, social workers can work. So again, I'm still getting familiar with all of them. I mean, we have offices all over the place, places that you may not even know. So there's just so many different opportunities when you're with the VA. When it comes to advice, first and foremost, I would just say stay encouraged. Stay encouraged. Be confident in your skills. If you may feel as if you're not prepared and ill-equipped to work as a social worker within the VA, but I promise you, someone has sat in that same seat, because I know I did. I sat in that same seat and felt the same way. But it's a matter of you stepping out there on what you know, being confident in what you know, and just explore all different kinds of opportunities, state, federal, private. There's so many different jobs out there, and one of the things that I did, and I continue to do, I look at jobs all the time. I feel like I'm in a job where I plan on being for the next 20 years and retiring, but I'm always looking at jobs because I want to know how is the field of social work growing? What's next? How can I prepare myself or educate myself to be a better tool and resource for the population I'm serving? So there is there's a growth in trauma-informed care. How can I get certified in trauma-informed care? CBT, can I get certified or pursue some sort of continuing education stuff that pertains to cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT? I mean, there's just so many possibilities out there. I think the more you have a drive and desire to serve and to learn and to educate yourself, the better. You're going to be a better resource. And sometimes I'll have veterans who will ask me questions about something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Nothing. But because I seek out opportunities, because I try to educate myself on different areas of social work and what's new, what's next, what's a hot topic, I feel like I'm better prepared to help my veterans. So, for example, I have a school social work credential, and I haven't used my PPS credential since I got my PPS credential. But I had a coworker ask me about, how do you pursue your PPS credential? What does that look like? And I was able to speak about it. I had a veteran ask me about, mental health. Like, what is mental health? I've never had to deal with this before. That's an area that I have an interest in. And then when I don't know something, I'm like, oh man, I didn't know this. And now it makes me want to find out more about it and get a better understanding of it. So the next time I am approached by someone, I can have a little bit more knowledge and I can be prepared to provide them with the insight and the information that they're looking for. I always want to learn, always want to grow, always want to be better. And I think that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Appreciate all of that. So let's take an opportunity to open up for questions. Does anybody have any questions for Richard? Don't be shy.
Yeah, I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
No questions? So yeah, I really appreciate those thoughts. And I know I personally, I've had all those experiences, and gosh, that's the beautiful thing about social work, is that it forces you to you kind of have to know a little bit about a lot of things.
Yes.
It really is that kind of profession where you kind of need to know a little bit of everything.
I aspire and deem myself a Swiss Army knife. That's what I try to be, man, because I work with so many different populations, veterans, children, teenagers, juveniles. I had to be ready. I had to be prepared. I was kept on my toes. So again, if you have the desire, if you have the compassion to want to help and to serve, the work kind of speaks for itself, and it does get easier, the more you do it. the more you familiarize yourself with, different treatment modalities, different areas of social work, the better. Um, I just always feel like there's room for growth, and I always kind of pride myself for being like I'm a student. I'm always a student. I'm always a student. I always want to learn. Always want to figure out. Okay, I look at someone else's resume that's a social worker. I'm like, whoa, they have this credential. Like, what does this look like? What does this look like? Wow, I wanna know more about that. So I'm excited about this place in my career. Even 12, 13 years into social work, I'm really excited about the next chapter and what it holds because again, I want to continue growing, continue learning, and being the best Swiss Army knife and social worker that I can be.
Absolutely. We have a question. Yes, Wendy.
Well, first of all, Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to, talk more about your profession, and Brian for just putting this together. But one of my questions is, I know as like a social worker myself, how do you address your mental health and self-care in this profession? I know sometimes it could be a lot. And so that's what I'm curious about. How do you address that on a day-to-day?
It's a great question, Wendy. Thank you for asking that. Self-care is something that a lot of social workers tend to dismiss, disregard, and downright neglect. So I have a couple of healthy habits that have kept my fire burning and have kept me away from compassion fatigue or feeling burnt out. I try to take a mental health day, if not once a month, every other month. And that mental health day usually consists of me maybe spending some time away at going to the movies, spending all day, maybe um, doing some exercising, and just kind of spoiling myself. A massage, facial, like once every other month, I'll do that for myself, just to kind of unplug and decompress. Um, I will schedule time off in advance. It's a good habit. I don't want to get up to the time I'm off and try to plan it. No, I like to plan ahead. So scheduling time off in advance. I'm heavy into my faith and spirituality, so giving time throughout the day, different pockets where I can find maybe 2 to 3 minutes to say a prayer and just to meditate and just to sit in silence. I love food and love to eat, so I'll treat myself out to a good meal, a good lunch every now and then when I'm not eating my typical hard-boiled eggs and water and fruit all the time. So just finding pockets where you could completely be intentional and devoted to yourself, which is really hard in our line of work. But if you schedule it, you're intentional about it, and you make it a habit, it's an exercise. The more you exercise, the more you do it, the stronger your muscle gets, the more you will be committed to, self-care.
I couldn't agree more. And I'd like to add a little bit more to that from my own personal experience, having been burnt out myself, having counseled other clinicians while they were burnt out. There's a couple of themes that I have noticed. First off is you have to have a life outside of work. You can't be one of those that your life is all about this work. It just doesn't work that way. That's number one. Number two is you're gonna have working in a big government bureaucracy like this, there's a lot of how shall I put it, nuttiness that happens.
The word.
That has nothing to do with your actual work. And that seems to be the thing that bothers social workers the most. So you have to learn to navigate all of that and push it off to the side and not let it get to you. So those couple of themes I've noticed, and I'm a big believer in taking lots of vacations. I'm a big believer in that myself. So if hopefully that answers your question, Wendy.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm. The I know that we had a few more come in late. Is there any, did you have any questions about this at all? Anything comment?
I feel like you're talking to me. I'm Brandy.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi.
There were a few more that came in late, so not just I wasn't pointing specifically at you. Don't feel I was
No, it's okay.
singling
I
you
can't
out.
really see how many people are there, so it looked to me like you were talking to me. I don't. I'm just catching up. I'm just trying to catch up and tune in. I had to make my daughter dinner,
I
and
understand.
I'm here
Of course.
now.
Of course. All of this is being recorded, so you can always go back later and check on it.
Perfect. Thank you. That I will.
All
I
right.
want to see what I missed.
All right. Well, it doesn't seem like we have anything else. No one else has any other questions, so I guess we'll end this early. So, well, with that said, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you very much, Richard, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Sort of short notice, but we got it together.
No
And
problem.
hopefully we can, and if you like this kind of thing, hopefully we can do more of this and invite other social workers that are in other places. This seems like something interesting that people might like to hear. So thank you very much, Richard. I really appreciate this. And we'll end it here. Thank you all, and you all have a good evening.
All right, you guys take care.